My Hero Academia is a universe that shows no signs of slowing down. With 2 successful movies, spin-off mangas, video games, and of course the main manga and anime doing very well, it's no surprise that in 2018, Horikoshi decided to extend his original plan for the story. His initial goal back in the day was to end the manga around volume 30, which would mean the series would have ended this year if he'd had stuck to that. Luckily that's not happening, but the day will eventually come when Deku and the gang defeat Shigaraki and achieve their goals of becoming pros. When that happens, as with any cultural phenomenon, there will still be a devoted fanbase out there, myself included, and let's just be honest people, there's money to be made. Whether it's Horikoshi who does it or someone else, this universe will not die once Deku graduates high school. Today we're looking at one of my favourite sequel concepts, which is set around 7 years in the future and includes a revamped UA high school, a game-changing new protagonist with totally different character motivations to Deku, plus new and original villains and also some returning villains as well that will really have a big impact for this protagonist. Just before we dive into it, this video is sponsored by Crunchyroll. With over 45 million registered users, if you go to crunchyroll.com/turtlequirk, you get a 14-day free trial of their premium service, which includes an unlimited supply of anime, manga, and drama titles. Every episode is ad-free and in 1080p HD quality. On top of having all 4 seasons of My Hero, it's the best service you can want in terms of getting into new shows. Recently I used it to catch up on Black Clover, and in fact Crunchyroll was the only service in my country that let me watch up until the very latest episode. I'll be doing more Black Clover videos in the future, so I would definitely recommend using Crunchyroll to catch up on the series. Additionally, because they have an extensive manga library, you can catch up on one of my favourite manga of all time, Attack on Titan. One amazing stat about Crunchyroll is that they offer more than 90% of all officially licensed anime content in the world, which just blew my mind. So like I said, check crunchyroll.com/turtlequirk or click the link in my description now to get your 2-week free trial. As we know, UA is the most famous and prestigious hero school in Japan, and it's produced a bunch of the world's greatest pros. Bearing that in mind, Horikoshi said the Overhaul arc introduced an important character that will be drawn in the final act of the original series. I doubt he's referring to characters who are quirkless, armless, or lifeless, but rather it's everyone's favourite girl, Airy. Whatever it is that Airy will do, whatever reason that makes her so important, she has already fulfilled Bakugo's words of showing signs of greatness at a young age. She effectively acted as a sidekick when Deku defeated Monster Hall, and before this she performed an insane feat of power, and I know it was kinda by accident, but the point still stands. Airy not only has potential to become great, but she actually lives at UA right now. Therefore, based on everything I just said, she is an excellent choice to be the first ever female protagonist of a series in this universe. Before we get into why her story would differ so much from Deku's, I want to mention how a revamped UA could look after all those years. Firstly, the entrance exam would be modified to play to the strengths of all different types of heroes. This means that students who have non-battle oriented quirks like Shinzo or Katsuma, they would all have a chance to shine. Rather than destroying robots, students would take place in fake villain attacks, which is quite similar to the provisional license exam. And during this exam, they would be graded equally based on how well they help people, how good they are at stopping villains, and how well they work with their fellow examinees. As Aizawa said, the current system just isn't rational because it rewards people with flashy attack type quirks a bit too much. This new exam, which weighs all these different things equally, it would pave the way for all different types of heroes to get into UA's hero course. However, much like Shoto Todoroki, I have no doubt that in Airy's case she would get into UA via special recommendation. If we're being logical, I mean she's been training her quirk since the age of 6 with Professor Aizawa, and her ties to the school, I mean they would be deeper than anyone else applying because she's lived there. So it's rational that she would go and do the special recommendation exam instead, if not just given a straight pass to join without doing any exam. I'm sorry, but if I've lived at a school for the majority of my childhood, I would actually be personally offended if you didn't just let me in. The second change is that UA's hero course would introduce a ranking system that will motivate students and create a positive rivalry. As a comparison, one of my favourite shows as a child was Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and in that show, people wanting to become pro duelists had to attend Duel Academy, and they were ranked into 3 separate groups based on their performance in the entrance exam. The best of the best were put into Obelisk Blue, the mid-level students were put into Ra Yellow, and then the lower ranked ones were put into Slifer Red. they could then be re-ranked based on their results at school. This system works because it provides a greater incentive for students in the lower ranks to consistently go plus ultra and prove themselves. Cyrus was the best example of this, as he began the series as a Slifer and moved up each year, eventually graduating as an Obelisk Blue. Having a group system also puts pressure on the top students to consistently perform, as sliding down the ranks is not a good look. In the sequel series that I imagine at least, the best hero candidates in the entrance exam would be put into a group in the same vein as Obelisk Blue, only in this show, the group would be named after All Might. Students in this bracket have the privilege of wearing the blue UA gym uniform, as this colour scheme represents All Might's golden age, and it's also the same uniform that students at UA have worn for decades, so it has a lot of history. Following that, it's only right that the second best group would be named after Endeavor, and would wear red gym uniforms. This represents both his fire and his fiery personality. Both characters could potentially be dead by the time this whole sequel happens, so it would be nice to pay homage to both of them. And behind this group would be a neutral group, which isn't named after any hero in particular. Remember that Endeavor and All Might are pretty unique, and they're basically freaks of nature. No other Japanese hero that we know of compares to either of them. For that reason, this group would wear a very neutral white colour, which would be worn by every single other student in the school. So that means general studies wear this, the business course wear this, and obviously the lower ranked hero students wear this. This would make things like the sports festivals so much more epic. I mean, imagine how much more exciting it is to have a kid in All Might Blue up against someone in Endeavor Red who clearly has a point to prove. Or even better, you can have someone in the white trying to show they're just as capable as the upper ranks. But like I said, every student on the hero course has the chance to be moved up into a higher group and be re-ranked if they improve. So now that we've established what a revamped UA might look like, let's get into who Airy's friends and rivals might be, as well as the evolving villains that she'll have to deal with. Katsuma and Kota are two young children that have already shown off their potential in the original series and in the My Hero Academia movie. Starting with Kota, he might not have that raw natural strength, but when it comes down to it, he did show bravery in distracting Muscular and saving Deku's life in the process. Meanwhile, Katsuma was so brave that he charged directly at a guy with 9 quirks and attacked him, which is just insane considering the damage he had done throughout that whole movie. To run up and attack him like that, you gotta have a fearless streak inside you. Both of these guys would no doubt get into UA, especially with Deku probably helping them out. I reckon Kota would be put into the neutral group, as his power is unrefined, but he has the heart of a true hero and obviously massive room to improve. In Katsuma's case, he's one that I can see starting in the Endeavor Red group and moving up to the All Might group down the road. His quirk is so good that an entire movie was dedicated to stealing it, but on the other side, it's not very flashy, and when coupled with his soft-spoken nature, it makes him very easy to overlook. Both of them are strongly linked with Deku, and it's likely that this connection will bring them together as friends, with Airy included. On the other hand, I think a very obvious choice for Airy's rival would be Tamashiro. In Season 4, we were introduced to the students of Masagaki Primary School, who were all noted as being very overpowered for their age. In the manga, he eggs on all of his classmates to fight the UA students, with his binging ball quirk being so fast that even Bakugo could not avoid it. He'd make a great fit for the All Might Blue group, as he clearly has immense talent and confidence, but I think he would be an unlikely ally and rival of Airy, so basically fulfilling the Bakugo role of the series. Now moving on, in terms of the villains that Airy could face, I have 2 selections for this video that I think you guys will really agree with. The first idea has never been done before in My Hero, and that is to have a totally original villain with no quirk. Every villain we've seen, right, they either have multiple quirks, overpowered quirks, or insane skill. But what if there was someone who literally just used their brain? What if we had a bad guy who was truly like the evil version of Deku? I mean, I know they imply that Gentle Criminal was sort of like what Deku might have turned out to be, but no, I'm talking about someone who genuinely does not have a quirk, who was bullied in the same way that Deku was, and became more resentful and hateful over the years. Rather than getting lucky in the same way that Deku did by, being given a quirk by the greatest hero, this person, on the other hand, never got that lucky break. They just grew up hateful and envious of quirk society. Someone who's just causing havoc with their mind and trying to erase all quirks because they want equality, well, I think that would be pretty cool, to be honest. And following that, the second idea I had for a villain will probably not surprise you given who the protagonist is of this sequel series, but Overhaul would make a surprise comeback during this series, as I think it would have very personal ramifications for Airy and potentially throw her off her game a bit. Facing her abuser as an adult, having now lived most of her life without him, that would be a dynamic that we've never seen in this universe, and it could allow for some very dramatic character development. She'd likely have to explain her past to her friends and open up about why she's so afraid of this guy, and perhaps her knowledge of him will ultimately be what allows the heroes to win. Seeing Overhaul come back would be an awesome throwback for fans of the original show, as no one can deny that this guy single-handedly pushed the limits of how dark My Hero Academia can be. Perhaps when he makes his comeback, he could have like an evolved version of his quirk, whereas obviously, he lost his hands because of Shigaraki, so now he just uses his feet and he just walks around barefoot everywhere destroying things. How exactly would a first season of this series play out? Like I said, Airy would get into UA via special recommendation, which would be a nice calm contrast to the hell that Deku went through before he took the entrance exam. Instead of a story of a boy with no hope of becoming a hero, it's instead a story of a girl who's confused about the type of hero that she wants to be. This sequel series could begin with an explanation of the current state of hero society and, how UA has changed, and of course, the dominance of the new top 2 pro heroes. They'd be in their 20s, and yeah, it's more than realistic that they'd be the top 2, given that Hawks was in the top 3 when he was like 18, Endeavor was he was the second best hero when he was 20, so yeah, by this point, I reckon Bakugo and Deku could well be the top 2 heroes. After this has been explained, if you remember, in the original series, Aizawa deprived Class 1A of the chance to attend the entrance ceremony, or any guidance sessions for that matter, so those are things that we never actually got the chance to see. Because of Airy's ties to Aizawa, she would likely be put into Class 1B to avoid any potential favoritism from Aizawa, and that means that she'd get to attend this ceremony and do the things that we never got to see Class 1A doing. My thought process is that for a ceremony like that, it wouldn't be too weird if a successful former student made an appearance and gave a speech to inspire everyone. If that was to happen, then I have no doubt it would of course be the living goat that is adult Deku, who by this point has mastered One for All, defeated Shigaraki, and probably done a bunch of crazy other stuff that I haven't even thought about. Izuku could give an anecdote about his first day at UA and how he was almost expelled if it wasn't for a quick bit of creative thinking. That'd be a nice throwback for us who watched the original series, and I think for new viewers as well, it would be a pretty funny moment. Now, thinking about these students themselves, Airy and Katsuma, I think it would make them believe that anything is possible, knowing that someone as strong and, as high ranking as Deku used to be someone who was so close to being expelled on day 1. After this, it would be a perfect opportunity for Airy and Katsuma to make friends, as they'd likely both be fanboying pretty hard. In the same way that Bakugo and Deku just fanboy over All Might, I imagine this would be a similar dynamic. Airy would get put into the top group of students alongside Tamashiro, and it's likely that their personalities would clash right from the beginning. For some reason, I feel like Tamashiro is way more of a Bakugo stan. The rest of the season would put Airy in pretty interesting situations. Typically you'd have, class battles, sports festival rivalries, and of course, a work study with MINETA. Hey, he did say he was looking forward to meeting her again. As Endeavor said, when a hero sets up an agency, they focus on evacuation, rescue, or battle, and I think Airy's collective experiences in the first season would help her realize what type of hero she wants to be. In fact, now that I'm just thinking about it off the top, I'm thinking that maybe Overhaul breaking out of jail could be like the cliffhanger for the first season. I think that would just blow everyone's minds. But let me know down below, do you think it's a good idea for Overhaul to return, or do you think we should just stick to completely new original villains? Kota would not appear in the first season of this because when I check the numbers, he's actually 1 full year younger than Airy, and for that reason he wouldn't appear until her second year at UA. When I checked Tamashiro's age, he actually has no confirmed age, so you can just make him whatever age you want really. So if Horikoshi was to do this, he could just say Tamashiro is the same age as Airy, it wouldn't make too much of a difference. Also, Katsuma is in the same academic year as Airy, so that's all good. They'd both be the same age when they start UA, so yeah, they'd definitely get to know each other, especially being massive Deku fans. And yeah, that was pretty much my idea for now. Let me know what you think. Is this whole just overall, is it something you'd like to see? Or do you think if we were to continue My Hero Academia 2, do you think we should just follow the characters that we already know as pro heroes? Let me know down below, and thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out, guys.